Hey, shout out to my YouTube family. Welcome to Khaliis Take. You know what to do if you haven't already. Please like, subscribe. Also hit the notification bell just so you can get the newest and the bonus content first. But let's just go ahead and jump right into what the topic is today. So, I want to talk about Paul George's injury status and how his injury is very, very rare. And is it still a possible chance the Clippers might have to shut him down for the rest of the season? Paul George, first of all, has a UCL injury, and it seems to be getting more strange by the minute to me, because when you look at his injury and when you keep hearing or seeing different things about how peculiar his injury is, it's really, really hard to determine what they'll be able to do with Paul George, whether they'll be able to shut him down for the season or whether he really can come back within a few weeks to be reevaluated in a few weeks to make a comeback. Or it's really, really strange. Because when you think about it, a UCL injury is mainly just predominantly the elbow, right there at the elbow area, where it's all about, the movement of the arm. Any peculiar movement or any odd movement on the arm could really, really make it worse. It doesn't really get better over time unless it really has time to heal, unless it really has time to rest. And even then, with resting, it gets better, but it's not going to get better to the point where Paul George might feel comfortable with it 100%. It might get better to the point where he can at least, use it or, be able to shoot, but it'll feel uncomfortable for him anytime he, releases the ball or anything like that, because it's just not one of those injuries that you really can pass off. It's one of those type injuries where in most cases, especially for baseball players, like I said before, baseball players get those UCL injuries and it requires Tommy John surgery. And that type of surgery a lot of times changes the trajectory of a baseball player's future, because mainly like pitchers, like baseball pitchers get this injury a lot because they're throwing the ball at a high velocity and their arm is being basically like contorted in a way where when they throw a curveball or a slider or maybe even a fastball, it takes a lot of torque, or it uses a lot of energy in that one specific area. Mainly, of course, it uses energy. Of course, when you throw a ball very hard or when you're taking bumps or whatever, of course, all your mobile joints in that area are being worked. But for some reason, that area seems to be damaged or worked the most, because Tommy John surgery is very, very popular in baseball, especially for pitchers, because they throw their shoulder, their elbow out a lot, and it really, really hinders their career going forward after they get that surgery. I mean, I can remember actually seeing a lot of pitchers growing up watching baseball. Kerry Wood was one that I remember specifically on the Chicago Cubs. He had an injury pretty similar to this. I mean, he was a really, really great pitcher, but, at least he showed signs of being a really, really great pitcher in his early part of his career. And then when he got the Tommy John surgery on his elbow, he never really was the same after that. And you hope for the situation that Paul George doesn't go through the same thing, because what they're trying to say on Clippers and the Clippers organization is they want to give it a few more weeks for him to rest and try to see where the elbow is and how he feels in a few more weeks. But really, they're not going to know unless he's taken a lot of contact, because when he came back from the injury, from the first time, he took some hits, took some bruises, and that's where it really, really got worse. And this is the point. If he comes back in a few weeks and he seems okay and everything, what is he going to look like if he's taking hits in the game, bumps in the game, where he's going to the basket, driving for layups, and maybe even dunks or something like that? That's when you're really going to see the effect of how it can affect his game and him overall. And the thing is, with that type of injury is so rare that you don't want to really risk injuring it even more, because he definitely won't ever be the same. Remember just a couple seasons ago, Paul George was out. I think this is when Kawhi Leonard actually started the Kawhi Town thing when he first came to LA and everything like that. Paul George was out because he had shoulder injuries. You know what I'm saying? He had both his shoulders, I think, were injured. So, with a player with shoulder injuries already, having a history of that, and I think he's had surgery on his shoulders. Now it's linking down to his elbow, which is his UCL. I mean, you have to really be precautious with Paul George because, right now he's almost at a breaking point body wise, because if the elbow doesn't heal the right way within a few weeks, just because he's getting the rest and everything, the Clippers really going to have to definitely shut him down, because they can't really risk not having him going forward with him being under contract the way he is, at least for 1 or 2 more years. So, I mean, it's really a peculiar situation that the Clippers are in. I think it's a lot of things they're not saying. It's almost as if this reminds us of the Kawhi Leonard situation in the playoffs last year. They were listening to him day to day, but in all actuality, they probably knew the whole time he wasn't coming back. And this situation feels exactly like that. So you definitely hope that, Paul George could find a way back and get himself back going. But at the same time, it's really hard to tell, because until he's taking hits, until he's getting bumped in that shoulder or that elbow area, until he really, really can take some contact, it's really hard to tell if he'll be able to come back healthy enough to play. Because like I said, that's such a rare injury. Most basketball players never suffer that injury. And when you look at the reports online, the doctor that they actually have, the specialist for the Clippers, one of the specialists they have, speaks about that injury and how rare it is. And I've known about the injury before just because I used to watch baseball growing up. That's the reason why I know about the injury, because it's so common in baseball, especially for pitchers. It's almost like, second nature. You know about baseball, and if you watched it long enough, you'll know. You've heard of Tommy John surgery. You've heard of those type of injuries. So, because a baseball player throwing his shoulder and his elbow out is very, 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 very common in that sport. So it's very uncommon in basketball, but of course, this is where Paul George is. This is what he's going through. And, I said before, does this alter the decision for Kawhi Leonard? I mean, because, Kawhi Leonard's situation is already bad enough. Clipper Nation don't need any more bad news with Paul George. And, right now, it seems like Kawhi Leonard is working his way back to getting back and making a comeback. And I'm pretty sure he would like to have his running mate with him in doing so. But I definitely think it can alter his decision as well. And, maybe the Clippers might end up shutting both of them down for the season or something like that if it came to it, but you definitely hope that doesn't happen. But with this rare injury Paul George has, it's almost like the Clippers really can't take much of a chance on it, because like I said, if you injure the arm even worse, like if he comes back in a few weeks and takes a hit in the game where he's driving in for a dunk or a layup or something like that, or just gets bumped in the shoulder the wrong way, it could put him out for a while. I mean, it could actually put him out until going into the next season, because that type of injury right there, once he gets that Tommy John surgery, it really might be a while before Paul George really actually gets right again. And see, this is the reason why I think they're being really precautious about this injury, because it's not like, an injury that we hear of a lot, ACL tear, which is bad, Achilles, all those are more common injuries, and they really know specifically how those injuries heal after surgery. But when you get a UCL injury in the elbow area, in that ligament right there, and you have to dig in and actually, cut it open or do any surgery on that area, I mean, as far as, the mobility of the joint in that area can really affect the player's shot. And remember, jump shooting is all about in the wrist, the elbow, all that stuff. It all, goes hand in hand, for that shot to go in. I mean, the ball has to have rotation, it has to be crisp, and you have to, when spreading your fingers for the ball to get rotation, it's a lot dealing with your joints between the wrist and the elbow. And if Paul George really can't use that, then he's really no use to anybody. He's really almost just useless. So the main thing is, what the Clippers are trying to do, they're trying to avoid him getting surgery. And I know that's what they're trying to do, because they keep reevaluating him on something that they can obviously see that's torn, and something that they obviously can see that can keep him out a long time. And I'm pretty sure Paul George is, definitely, trying his best not to get the surgery either, because he knows if it's a rare injury like that, it definitely could take a while to heal, and definitely could take a while for him to get back to where he needs to be to help this team, or be a a part of this team to win a championship. And that's what the goal is. It's all about winning championships. So there is a very strong possibility, even in a few weeks, Paul George might get shut down for the rest of the season. I mean, it really is, because like I said, with the injury being so rare and so fine to that those joints in that area, it can really affect a player long term. And if it affects a player long term, now you're messing with his livelihood, his money, and now you're messing with his NBA career. So they have to be really precautious with this injury, simply because it's so rare and it's not something that most basketball players ever have to deal with or ever go through. It's just very uncommon for this to actually happen. And I think right now the Clippers are at a standstill because they really just don't know what to do. I mean, with him, because like I said, you want to be precautious, but the Clippers also want to win a championship. You see what I'm talking about? So it's very up in the air type vibe right now when it comes to Paul George. And I'm not sure what they're going to do, but hopefully in a couple weeks, like I said, things will transpire different for him. And this way it can, help the Clippers, propel forward, because he's definitely one of the key pieces, of course. Of course, Kawhi Leonard is the key, but still, Paul George was put there too in place to actually help to win a championship. And he's definitely, their second best player. So without your second best player, it's going to be tough to go through the playoffs if Kawhi decides to come back and try to run through the West without any substantial help like that. So, I mean, we'll just have to see how the injury goes. Hopefully, they don't shut him down for the season or shut Kawhi down for the season or whatever the case may be. But hopefully he doesn't have to have the surgery either, because if he does, then, I mean, Paul George really, I'm not sure. His career actually might change with an injury like that, because like I said, those joints in that elbow and all that connecting to the wrists and all that stuff, I mean, that's definitely going to alter his jump shot, and it's definitely going to hinder him. I mean, because when he had the shoulder injury a couple years ago, you see, that was his way of saying that's the reason why he didn't play good in the bubble. Now, of course, that can be true. Some of that could be false, but still, it still affects your jump shot, and that's definitely something a basketball player doesn't need. But hey, that's my take on the situation. You leave any comments in the comment section as always. And hey, Cali out.